So, how do you respond to a music teacher who pushes back against culturally responsive teaching? This is what we're going to talk about during our Lunch and Learn session today, talking a little bit more about what pushback is, why it happens, and what really needs to be addressed that is underneath. If you're just joining me, hey, let me know in the comments that you're tuning in. If you're watching the replay, give me a hashtag replay and let me know that you are with me. I'm so glad that you're joining me for this Lunch and Learn. My name is Ashley Cuthbertson. I use the pronouns she and her, and I am a former pre-K through 12 music educator and professor. And today I am the founder and CEO of A. Cuthbertson Consulting. We support pre-K through 12 music educators with being able to develop the knowledge, the skills, and the dispositions to deliver instruction that is culturally responsive and relevant, that meets the needs of the diverse and ever-evolving needs of today's students, so that all kids have an equitable pathway to success. But before that, I spent 12 years as a pre-K through 12 music educator, as I mentioned, here in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., primarily in Northern Virginia. Also, I taught in D.C. for just a little bit. And I taught all the things. I taught general music, I taught elementary, I taught middle school, I taught choir, I taught private lessons for quite a while. I had my own studio. I was a musicianship teacher, all of the different things. But for the last 8, almost 9 years, I've been creating, delivering, facilitating professional development and coaching for music educators to support them with their instructional practices. I've been full-time in my company now for just over a year. So happy birthday to us. That was last month that we celebrated. And in our time, just in this first year, we've had 13 school and district partnerships to support hundreds of music teachers. And then I also rolled out my direct to teacher programs last summer. And so we've been able to work with 121 really fabulous, dedicated music teachers through my online coaching programs to be able to support them as they work to implement culturally responsive teaching so that music really can be accessible to all kids. Additionally, I also did 12 conferences in this last year. So a lot of traveling, a lot of talking about this thing that I am really passionate about, but ultimately it's not useful if we're not able to get the information to the people who need it most, right? And so a week ago, I think, I posted a question across my social media channels asking people what are the roadblocks to implementing culturally responsive music education. And I got a couple comments. I got more DMs actually, which was interesting that more people wanted to have a private kind of conversation than just putting out the comments, which that's how social media works, right? But so I got a couple of DM conversations about it and people posted the comments. So the comments I got were, well, one thing is that how do you navigate when teachers just don't want to do culturally responsive teaching in their music program? Another person shared a roadblock for them is that music teachers they work with already feel that music is culturally responsive. Another person also mentioned that the teachers that they work with are fabulous, but when it comes to culturally responsive teaching, they already feel like what they're doing in their program is enough, despite data and other things that are demonstrating that maybe there are some opportunities. They already feel like they're doing enough. They don't want to have to add another thing. Another person mentioned to me in a DM that they were a music teacher, so they want to incorporate culturally responsive teaching, but they're concerned about causing offense. And that's actually something I hear from music teachers often, that especially with our political climate in the US the way it is now, divisive concept laws and policies and books being banned in libraries and such, it makes sense that there are teachers who are concerned about causing offense because the word culture, for whatever reason, is triggering to people, even though I really am not convinced that most people know what the word culture means now at this point. So the word culture is triggering, culturally responsive is triggering, DEI is triggering, equity is triggering. These things that literally mean just make sure people have better access and make sure that we're embracing the fullness of somebody's humanness for whatever reason. And we know what the whatever reasons are, but they're triggering to folks, right? And so yesterday, I actually was doing a podcast interview with another music educator who has their own show. That episode should be coming out soon, so I'll be sure to share where you can listen to that. And they had some great questions. One of them was, what do you say to a music teacher who says that this is just another thing? What do you do when there's pushback? And so because this conversation keeps coming up in this last week, I thought I would do a little pop-up lunch and learn session to go a little bit deeper, and also to talk about my experience working with teachers all over the US, how I've experienced it and how I've kind of navigated through it. So I think one thing to share with you first is give you a quick little story about the first time I remember having any kind of pushback. So like I said, I've been creating, facilitating, doing PD sessions and things for music educators for, it's either 8 or 9 years, I'm losing track, but 8 or 9 years ago, it was 2014 was the very first, actually it was 2012, but I don't really count that one because I didn't really know what I was doing. So 2014, that was when I really started doing, delivering PD more consistently and often for school districts, teacher associations, being asked to present at conferences, things like that. And so the first time I remember encountering like explicitly, because I'm sure people were not always buying what I was selling all the time, especially those early years when I was still learning about adult learning theory. I was still learning how to be a good and effective PD facilitator. So I'm sure that was not like the first time, but the first time I remember it. And actually, I was writing a post that I think I will post either later today or maybe tomorrow about the first time that I remember, like, oh, there is something happening here. Somebody is pushing back. And it was actually, I think it was the first time I did a PD for a school district that was not my own. It's another school district that I went and did PD for them. I was still a full-time teacher. I was teaching elementary general music and choir. And so I took a day and went and did PD for another school district. And that PD was actually on differentiation in the music classroom. Still to this day, I don't really know of anybody else that delivers that kind of PD the way that I do. Not just what is differentiation, but like actually how do you put it in place in a music classroom, especially when us as music educators, we have hundreds of kids at a time, but I digress. So that first time I remember encountering like explicit pushback in a session was this, I think it was the first time I did a PD for a district not my own. And we were in a music classroom. And so it was a music classroom where it has like that stadium seating. So if you can imagine, like I could see everybody very clearly because it wasn't like a flat surface. So it was like the stadium seating. And I remember this teacher, a music teacher, we're all music teachers. I think it was all elementary teachers also were sitting. No, it was not. It was K through 12 because it was a pretty big crowd. So they were sitting, everyone is sitting in the stadium seating. And this particular teacher, like their body language, they were sitting in the back like this with their arms crossed. I remember they were literally talking the whole time I was talking as I'm, getting into the first part of the session. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep going. If it had been like my actual students, I would have I didn't really know what to do. That was the first time I think adults talking over me happened. And so I wasn't really sure. So I just kept going, but I was aware of like, whoa, like they're not engaged in what I'm doing. They're like talking right over me. So the first time there was like a stop and chat moment where I kind of gave, 15, 20 minutes of direct information about differentiation. And then we had a time to like kind of process, debrief, talk with neighbors. I was walking around, asking questions, engaging with people as they were having those discussions. And I was afraid to go to that back row because I knew that teacher was back there. I knew from just their body language and general vibe, they were not buying what I was selling. And so I didn't go all the way back there, but I came close enough that I could like eavesdrop on what they were saying. And I remember they said something to the effect of like, this is just another wave in education. She's just another person that's going to give us a bunch of information, but nothing practical. And I remember being so struck of like, ooh, I thought I already was giving practical at that point. And I was struck by just how kind of turned off this teacher was by what I was doing. And so as a master teacher, not a master facilitator at that point, but as a master teacher, I did what any good teacher does. So clearly what I'm doing is not hitting. And so instead of going with the program the way I had planned it, I knew later in the session, the last thing that we were going to do was actually like a practical application. What would a lesson look like if we applied explicit like differentiation within it? And so instead of waiting until the end of the session, I pulled it up the next thing that we did. I just turned face and we decided to do that because it was clear to me that I had missed like the most important thing. And now that I know more about adult learning theory, I had missed that I had not made it explicitly clear, like the meaning and the purpose and the what's in it factor for the teachers I was working with that particular day. I was working off the assumption that they already were invested, right? Because they had seen the description and I gave them a little information about me, not enough, clearly. So I jumped ahead and I did that. Looking back, in the moment, I should say, before I say the looking back, in the moment, clearly I realized I had missed something. I had missed that connection that they needed. but I also had missed the importance of what I was doing as a PD facilitator, giving explicit music content facilitation in that moment. And as I look back on that, what I realized, especially after a year of full-time working as a consultant and serving teachers all over the country, what I know now is that music teachers are hungry for relevant, actionable, practical professional learning that is specific to our context. Not that we're going to a general session and we still have to go back to our classroom and translate it into our own situation, but actual in a music program, in my band classroom, in my choir classroom, whatever. How do I actually do this? And not just how do I do it, but how do I actually sustainably do it after time? Because we know I can give you a lesson, I can give you strategies, but once you run out of that lesson and that strategy that I gave you, if I have not taught you the pedagogy behind it, you can't continue to do it without me holding your hand, right? And so what I know now is that music teachers are hungry for this kind of actionable, real PD. And because music educators are unfortunately kind of an afterthought when it comes to PD, we're just often let down. We're let down because we go to PDs excited, or we think something is going to happen, and then it's just another here comes another person not giving me what I need, basically. And so when I look back on that first time I recognized a pushback was happening, it really wasn't about the content I was facilitating. It really was about, I was experiencing somebody who probably had been let down a lot by their PD experiences, and I needed to show up more clear about what was happening. I've since gotten a lot better about that. And so today, as I'm talking about pushback, I was thinking again of that story, or that time that I remember experiencing, like, oh, something is not right. It's not hitting here. And I think a lot of times when we think about pushback, especially when it comes to culturally responsive teaching, equity, inclusion, I think we often look at what's on the surface. What is the actual sentence or phrase that this teacher is saying? What is the actual, comment that somebody left on a social media, whatever. I think we look at the surface of what is being said and what's also being done. What I think we don't do enough of is get underneath the hood of the car to really figure out, well, what is it that is causing this to be their reaction? What is it that's causing them to do this, say this, act this way? I think especially in our world today, people are so easily triggered by a variety of things, but we don't stop to really think, well, what's underneath this? What could be why this person is saying this? I really full-heartedly believe that, with the small exception of adults, people have kids in the best interest, right? And I think when it comes to teachers, again, caveat, there's a small percentage of few, right, that I don't know about those, but the majority of us, teachers and adults, we want to do what's best for kids. And so when encountering pushback, and I've encountered pushback from West Coast to East Coast and everything in between, right? Just so to remember, when I'm coming to work with a school district or a school, often it's like the fine arts supervisor that's bringing me in. The teachers themselves may not even know who I am, right? So I'm coming in to their space and giving this information, right? And helping them to develop some skills. So thinking about getting beyond the surface and thinking more about, well, what is behind this comment, I think is what, when I get asked questions like, well, what do you do when somebody pushes back? That's always my answer, right? There's so much more that's not being said. And there is more that even that teacher might not realize that they're experiencing. That's really how we navigate the pushback, right? Because the reality is, I could pontificate at you and theorize at you why culturally responsive teaching matters. I could recite the research to you. I could recite the research to you about why music education matters and why it's valuable beyond just playing in a band concert, right? I can give you all of that, but fundamentally, there has to be a shift in values and beliefs. And I think first of all, not enough people are skilled that they can help people to do that. And I think second, not enough people are willing to go deeper to explore that part, because that's hard. It also requires like emotional intelligence and a little bit of resilience on the part of the facilitator to kind of walk with a person as they are experiencing that, and to kind of dig deeper, pull the layers back to really understand. And so my answer to how do you navigate the pushback is always, you have to look underneath. You have to understand, well, what is going on underneath what that person is commenting or saying or even doing, to understand what might be the root causes of what they're doing, because it's never the surface, it's always something underneath. What I've discovered is that there's a couple of things that often I encounter when I kind of prod deeper with the teacher, when they make a comment that suggests to me that they're pushing back or that they're uncomfortable with embracing a culturally responsive approach. The biggest one being fear. Fear of a variety of things, but I think fear of, well, here we go again, another initiative. In education, we love an initiative, right? So here we go again with another initiative. And as music educators, it's more, it becomes about time, right? Because we have hundreds of kids, we are short on time. There was times in my teaching where I had 9 classes a day, right? So to ask me to now do a whole other thing when I have maybe 30 minutes a day to even like eat food feels overwhelming. So it's a fear, not necessarily of embracing what we know is best for kids. It's a fear literally of, here's another thing to be putting on my plate. And then being afraid of not being able to do the thing because they are afraid of their own ability to be able to carry it out, right? And so I think that is something that I recognize quite often. Another is fear about, well, who am I, right? So if I'm coming to you, this person that you've maybe never heard of or seen before, and I'm coming to work with you and I'm telling you these things that are probably going to challenge how you think and feel and even view yourself, for me to do that, especially if you are a person who has not done a whole lot of self-identity work, that feels really threatening. To have somebody challenge what you have been holding to be true about your very identity. I'm a person who champions kids. I advocate for music education. I do what's best for my students. I'm always making sure that everybody has access. And then here I come, challenging that. If you haven't done any kind of self-identity work, it feels really threatening. And then the fear rises up, and the fear that's underneath, on the surface, it might look like the variety of pushback comments that we see, right? So might look like somebody saying, well, like that teacher said, music is already culturally responsive, or I don't need to add anything new. What I'm doing already is working, right? Because there's a challenge to your own identity. And if you're not already secure in who you are because you understand who you are, that's your cultural frames of reference. That's really difficult. And then that fear starts to bubble up, and then it emerges as other things. Another one is the fear of just change. Human beings, even though we're always encountering change on some level, human beings don't like change, right? And so again, for me to come along and to suggest to you that, especially if you've been teaching for a long time, a veteran teacher, 20, 30, 40 years, and here I come saying that you got to change the way that you're teaching, you got to change the way that you are, change the way your policies and practices and procedures of your program have been doing for years. The fear of that change also bubbles up, and then it manifests as those different kind of pushback comments that I said before, because it's hard, especially if you've been teaching a certain way for a long time, not having anything challenge you. And then all of a sudden now somebody's telling you that what you thought was working well is perhaps not working as well as you thought. The idea of having to change, again, that the idea of like, now what do I do? Do I have the time? Then the fear bubbles up. So we have to get to like, how can we help teachers navigate through the fears? What can we do to quell those fears and calm those down a bit? And then the last one I'll mention is, especially in music education, where so much of what we see and encounter is, well, this is just what we've been doing forever, right? This is just how it's always been. I really think that comment itself is rooted in fear. Whenever somebody says to me, well, this is the way we've always done it, that's just a comment in fear, right? Because we know that so many things that have been done a certain way for any length of time, we know that there are so many things that have been done and have been normalized in our systems and in our society are harmful, not just to kids, but to adult society at large. So the comment, well, this is what we've always done, that I know is rooted in some kind of fear. We have to also help teachers to navigate through that, right? Because it may also be that they don't have the knowledge of systemic inequality. They might not have the knowledge of history to understand how many of the systems that we operate in have not been designed for all of us or all of our kids. So it might be a lack of knowledge. It might also be fear of their lack of knowledge. And sometimes the fear of lack of knowledge is a little bit, what's the word? a willing fear, right? Because it's easier to just stay where you are, where you're comfortable, versus venture off to somewhere where you might learn something that is going to, again, challenge your identity, challenge ideas that you've already had. And so I didn't want to come on too long, because I am going to eat my own lunch, a little lunch and learn for me too. But I wanted to come on and talk a little bit about navigating that pushback, as I've experienced it as someone working with teachers. Maybe you've also experienced it too. So I would love to hear any comments. If you want to leave them in the comment section, I'll come back to the video will be up on my channel. So I'll come back and I'll look, and I'll be sure to answer any questions or just respond to any thoughts, because I would love to hear how others are navigating this. Your leaders at the district and school level, how are you navigating this with your music teachers specifically? We know that music teachers are not getting the kind of high quality professional learning support. And so sometimes even that itself, there's pushback, right? Because they've been left alone to do whatever they want. And now here we are saying, no, this is what our school stands for. This is what our school district stands for. We need to make sure that everybody is on board. There's going to be pushback. Last fall, that actually reminds me, last fall, maybe October or November, I actually wrote a blog post. It's on my website. I'm not sure which month, so you can look, but I wrote a blog post about expecting pushback to happen. I wrote it more from the perspective of a music teacher or even a school or a district leader, in regards to like parents, community, colleagues. How do you navigate pushback in that way? In fact, you need to expect that there will be pushback, because with any new initiative, people don't like change, right? You need to expect that there's going to be pushback. And if there isn't any, it might not be that your initiative is as bold as maybe you thought it was, right? But check that blog out also if you're looking for additional just commentary on this issue of how do we navigate the pushback as we're seeking to reimagine what education looks like, what music education looks like, such that all of our kids really have access to what they deserve, right? A high quality music education that values who they are and allows them to develop skills that serve them, not just in the four walls of the music classroom or the band room, but in their life in general, right? So thank you for coming and joining me, those of you that popped in and out. And if you're watching the replay of this, thank you for taking some time to engage in this important conversation. I have a couple of invitations for you before I leave you. So the first is my team and I are putting the finishing touches this week on our newest service, which I'm so excited about. It's actually the 2.0 version of our Library of Professional Development workshops. We're relaunching it bigger and better. And so the Responsive Music Educator Library, right now we're in pre-sales until July 31st, which is next Monday. And then on August 1st, it officially will open. And so many teachers already have grabbed their seats in the library during our pre-sale time. If you have not already, let me tell you a little bit more about it. So we know that it's a challenge to have high quality, ongoing professional learning, especially when it comes to helping teachers navigate implementing culturally responsive teaching. Oh, you're welcome, Tony. Thank you for jumping on. And so the Responsive Music Educator Library is my solution to still providing high quality, ongoing professional learning, but it's in an asynchronous format. So it's anytime, anywhere learning. We know calendars are hard, right? Not everybody has lots of days for PD, and not everybody has lots of days for music specific PD. So the library allows for anytime, anywhere learning so that teachers can work through it, music teachers, on their time. If you have a PD day coming up, let your music teachers utilize the library as their professional learning rather than sitting in another unrelated math, PD that has nothing to do with it. Allow them to be able to engage in that. Additionally, what I'm really excited about, the platform allows the workshops to be a little bit more modularized. So it allows for more personalized learning. When learning is personalized, we know it's more likely that our music teachers will actually be able to put into practice what they're learning. So I'm excited for it to be just more user-friendly, this 2.0 version around. And then I get lots of requests from school districts that have a variety of kinds of budgets. This is also a more cost-effective way. So if my live services, which start at $6,500, if that's out of your budget, it's only $325 per seat until July 31st. And then it's still only $375 per seat for you educators to get ongoing PD. It's a subscription model. I didn't say that. So it's a year-long subscription for 12 months. And you get access to what's in there now, which right now, I think we have 4, and then the 5th one I got to finish for next week. And then it's just going to continue to grow. The very same framework for culturally responsive music education, that my proprietary framework that I've developed from my time both in the classroom myself, but also supporting music educators, all the workshops are still built using that same framework. So I know I've gotten some questions like what makes these workshops different. They're a little bit different because they are designed to be for an asynchronous kind of engagement, but they're utilizing the same framework, the same ideas. It's me creating all of them. So it's the same source that all of those workshops are coming from. And so if that's you, if you're a school or district leader looking for just better professional development or any professional development that meets the needs of your music educators, especially those of you that have initiatives for culturally responsive and equitable learning and are looking for how to make sure your music teachers are on board with that initiative, definitely reach out to me. Let me actually put it in the comments. You can go to, hold on, I have the wrong link here. So you can go to my, well, you can go to my website, and it's the very first thing on the website. I think there's a button to it. And then here also, my Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube friends. Here is the link to it there. And then, you know what? Instagram friends, it's in my bio. So why don't you go to my bio instead of me trying to like click and figure it out. Sorry. So, or you can just go to my website, ashleycuthbertson.com. Link is also in the bio. Like I said, the 325 is only going to last per seat until July 31st. And then after that, it goes to the regular price of $375. If you're a school or a district leader looking to grab a bulk order, so like 5 or more for your music teachers, reach out to me, because what I do for larger orders of my on-demand is I provide a live virtual, kind of like this, follow-up session, because we know one and done is not good enough, right? And so for bulk orders, I also provide a follow-up session so that I can still have some touch points with your teachers to help them continue to move forward rather than getting stuck. So that's my first invitation to you, is to grab that for you. And if you're a music teacher watching, go grab that for yourself right now. Second invitation is my calendar is open for 2023 through 2024. I'm booking now for my workshop series. My workshop series is 3 parts, and it's built on my framework for culturally responsive music education. My framework is actually 4 parts, but my workshop series dives deep into one particular part of my framework. And so trying to do all of it all at once is very overwhelming. I do have a more robust program for that for folks who are ready for that. But most folks, the 3 workshop series is exactly what you need, because we dive deep into either kind of what we talked about today. How do we make the mind frame shifts towards equity and cultural competence, which is really the first thing that we have to do before we get into curriculum and such. The second series of 3 workshops is all about learning environment. How do we really create a responsive learning environment? The third series is all about how do we pick repertoire that allows for culturally responsive learning experiences. And then the fourth part is about culturally responsive curriculum and instruction. And so if you're a school leader or a school district leader who is interested in taking your teachers deeper than just surface level knowledge about culture responsive teaching, and you're looking specifically for somebody that can walk with you and walk with your teachers through how do we implement this approach, definitely reach out to me either. Link is in my bio. Friends over here. Let me also drop the link to book a call, really. And so on our call, what we'll do is I'll listen to what your school and district priorities are. Book a call. Instagram friends, that's also in my bio. But so on our call, our consultation call, I'll listen to what your school and district priorities are. I'll also listen for what are your needs? What are your desires? What are you hoping for? And then we'll pick which part of the framework best matches where you are. So you might need to start at the beginning, which is developing that cultural competence piece, making the mindset frame shifts, or maybe you're ready to dive into more like curriculum instruction and things like that. And so on that call, what we'll do is we'll figure out where would be best for you, and then we'll move forward through there. So the link is in my bio. The link is also in the comments in the variety of places. My DMs are also open. So if you just want to have a conversation about what it would look like to work with me and work with my team, feel free just to send me a DM, and we can have a more informal conversation as well about what that support could look like. In addition to my professional development, which is my main service that I do, I also do take on a limited number of music teachers to work one-on-one with in my instructional coaching program. And then I also do a little bit of curriculum and strategy as well, but on a limited basis, I really focus on what I do best. I'm a teacher, right? So I love doing the professional development piece. And so reach out to me if you want to talk more about those other things. All right, so those are my invitations to you. Grab your seat in the Responsive Music Educator Library. Grab it for yourself if you're a teacher, if you're a school or district leader. Let's get you a bulk order so that your music teachers actually have some ongoing PD throughout the year. Secondly, if you're a school or a district leader, reach out to me. Let's have a call to talk about where in my framework would best support you so we can put together a 3-part workshop series to support your music teachers as they seek to center culturally responsive and equitable practices in their instruction. And of course, DMs are also open if you want to have a more informal chat. All right, well, thank you again, those of you that hopped on. Thank you for those of you that are watching the replay. I'll probably pop on and do another couple of these lunch and learns throughout the rest of the summer as different things come to me. So make sure you keep an eye on my channel, or even better yet, get on my email list. I always send an email to my folks to let them know where to come when I do pop-up sessions like this. Make sure you're on my email list if you are not already. And I will see you all again real soon.